Good evening or good morning from wherever you are, and welcome to Dreaming Tech, the joint sessions between Synagogue and Dreaming Up 5781. The sessions where we try and answer your questions on how to take your services that you deliver online and your remote events online in the Jewish world and make them hopefully a bit better. We've got a great panel tonight, and I'd like to introduce the panel as they join in here. First up is myself. My name is Leo Mindell. I'm involved in helping out a number of synagogues in the UK to live stream, as well as the board of deputies. Joining us on the panel today, going across the top of my list here, first one up I've got is Marty.
Hi there, Leo. Pleasure to be here. I'm an audio, video, and broadcast engineer and host of the Hybrid Ministries Tech Forum on Thursday evenings, of which Leo is a generous panelist. And I'm getting some equipment ready to show off today for outside production.
I knew when we said we'd do outside production, I knew this was one that Marty would be up for. Next up on my list is David.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Paskin. I'm the Torah Tech guy, and my greatest dream in life is to be the Leo Mindell on this side of the pond.
I'd laugh, except for I think I watch your videos and I'm astounded at how brilliant they are. I absolutely love watching the stuff that you do. And not only that, I love watching some of the subjects you cover, David. In fact, to say that, David is running an event. Maybe you could just mention on the event for next week already.
Sure. Yeah, it's the Torah Tech Summit, TorahTechSummit.com. You can register, although we'll also be streaming it. It's, it's just looking unbelievable. The sort of the collection that we've put together of people participating. Leo will be there. We've got Rabbi David Ingber. Marty is going to be teaching. We have representatives from Cinemaker, representatives from ProPresenter, from Live Control, tutorials on vMix, OBS, Ecamm, StreamSpot. It's just going to be a wonderful, wonderful day. It's completely free. And you're all invited to join us.
Thank you, David. Moving across on my list, the next I've got is Richard.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Richard Wolf. I'm from Charlotte Sedek, North London Reformed Synagogue in London, where we do co-hosting in our own particular way, which some people seem to like.
And I foisted on Richard 3 minutes before we launched, or maybe even less, the gift of he is cutting the show. So he's the one who's controlling Zoom for us tonight. So thank you, Richard. I didn't know if that was down on the mitzvah that you thought you were going to be doing today, this week, but there you go. Thank you for doing that. I thought I was
having a quiet Sunday evening.
Quiet Sunday evening. Next up on my list is Carmi.
Hi, it's Carmi Weinsweig coming in from Redondo Beach, California. I work with a couple of different shows, some here in California, one in Orlando and one in Chicago, but mostly I do technology stuff for film and television. So that's my primary area.
So before we go to the next person, the show runs on questions from you. We've only got a couple of questions in the box at the moment. This is the time to put some more. So Richard, if you can spotlight the questions in there, the Slido thing, please put in your questions. Use that connection at the QR code, point your phone at it. Take you straight to the page, and then you can enter in your questions, and we will go from there. Next up on that I have is Brody. Are you there today, Brody? Are you joining us on the panel? I don't know if he is today.
We haven't got a picture on yet, so
no, that's all right. So I'm going to move over to John Fiber.
Hello, my name's John, and my background is in theatre. I write music for theatre and also sound design, but I've also recently done sound at quite a lot of shuls, which is, after all, another kind of theatre. and I've done some TV and film sound, and yeah, that's it really. And I play golf, as you can see in the background.
So we've got a number of questions come in, and I'm going to start on there. Put in the questions in there if you would like to, and we're going to go. The main thing we're talking about today is remote production, the ability, how we deal with this. This makes the bit that we do in synagogues even more complex when you suddenly throw the ability that you need to bring in people, or the event itself is outside of the sanity, if that's the right word, of where you normally do. Before we start going into the questions, anybody on the panel got any examples of some of the remote or outside broadcast events that they've had to do in the last 18 months since lockdown? David?
I know that a lot of synagogues here in the US are starting to do their services, their on-site services outdoors. And so some of us are lucky, we have a nice patio outdoors and it's close to the Ethernet, so we can just run a cable. But for a lot of other places, they're maybe going to a park or something like that. So in addition to life cycle events that may be taking place outdoors, as the world begins to reopen, a lot of us are finding ourselves outside.
Richard, you're on mute. I
can't. So I was reflecting on this sort of earlier when I saw the topic coming through, and I did a quick count up of how many people we did our service yesterday. We don't do them all hybrid. We did a completely online service. We had 19 different remote locations going on, which we brought in during that service over the course of an hour and a half service. So and we did it all through Zoom, and it was relatively seamless. But actually, when you add up the complexities of trying to get everybody in and they're making sure their mic levels and all that, it does put you you do feel at the time that you're running by the seat of your pants to make sure that it all comes in. But when it all works, it all looks really nice, and everyone says, "Oh, you make it all look so easy." But is what makes we found at Charlotte Tzedek. We really like as many members of the community being involved as possible. But that does go and make it a lot more complicated. But life would be very boring if it was simple.
So just so I understand, when you're saying there, Richard, you're talking about bringing, so you said 19, is that including, have you got people back in the synagogue already now? Where's your rabbi based?
Yesterday was a bit unusual. We actually we were 100% online yesterday. We have been moving into hybrid services. But yesterday we had a very nice service. It was for the top end of our Cheder, our primary school Cheder, who are all finishing, about to start their mitzvah program, and all the kids come and take a bit of the service. So there were 15 kids in the class, and we had each one of them were in their home, and we had people coming to call up for aliyahs, and other people coming in for other different bits and pieces, and rabbis and musicians and other things. And when you top the whole lot up, it comes to just under 20 people involved. But it's a normal service now for us, a hybrid service in the synagogue. We deliberately, when we started off doing this, we wanted to have the ability that we could make it work both ways. It was really important we could get sound from whatever we were doing into the sanctuary and out the other way. So we do call someone up who's sitting at home to an aliyah on the scroll. It's very, very strange. Some people have said it doesn't quite work. We have tried with someone being called up in the synagogue and the person reading Torah from home. People find that a bit strange, but it's actually, it can be done. And we have the tools there for the service leader to work out how it is they want to use it.
Okay, let me move on to Marty and then on to John on this.
Yeah, I did an outdoor service, first one for me, last weekend, as a matter of fact. It was a Unitarian Universalist service, and it was very interesting because they had a really nice tent. Let me see if I can get a picture of this up here. And so we had to set up a PA system so that everybody could be heard. There was some music being played, and had a digital mixer set up in the back, and there were 2 cameras that were set up for streaming over Zoom. So
it
we
is.
set this up. We set this up on Saturday. It took pretty much all day, several hours on Saturday to set this up. Then we had to pull all the gear and bring it inside to secure it, and then bring it back out on Sunday morning.
So carrying on going around the room, you said, John, did you have some?
Yeah, just we had people back in our shul last Friday, was it? I think it was last Friday. We had 30 people, I think. But the nice thing is that we reconnected the PA, which had been disconnected for a year and a half, and from now on, even if the people aren't in the sanctuary, we're going to have the PA on, so the rabbis and all the people, well, the people singing can get used to the sound of their voices in the sanctuary, and everyone really loves it, really enjoyed it. It went really well. Yeah.
Okay, so that's giving you a bit of a flavour of some of the things that people have been doing and where we're going. So I'm going to go and jump into the questions here. And the first question I have up here is from Ellie Miller. My question is about sound. What is the best way to make sure the sound of an outside venue is good for both the people outside and the people on Zoom? I'm looking for hands. Marty.
Well, the best way to make sure that you have good sound is, of course, to make sure that everything has a microphone, and that ensures that and you have a decent mixer, and that makes sure that everybody on the webcast can hear clearly. You want to make sure that you only have microphones turned on that are actually being used, and turn your other microphones off. And then for everybody that are watching outside, you have to have a good pair of speakers that are placed appropriately, so they're not generating a lot of feedback from the microphones that are on, and just make sure that they're loud enough for people to hear them.
Yeah. I'd add to that, the one of the big things I find, and I'm just going to come to you, David, in 10 seconds, is what called wind socks or dead cats. So the thing over the microphone, in particular, it's called a dead cat. It's normally grey and black, and I'm hoping John is going to pull a dead cat off the wall. There you go. So that is a dead cat on the end of a microphone. And thank you, Marty, as well. The difference they make on an outdoor event is amazing. David.
Well, I actually just wanted to maybe tweak the question a little bit and ask, is there a difference in how we get great sound for the roomers and the Zoomers when you're inside versus outside? What are the differences? Because we already know it's a challenge indoors. So
I think that's a great question. And we've got a number of professionals here. I've got Carmi's hand up. Carmi.
So one of the things that's much more of an issue outdoors. Indoors, you're used to having acoustics that work in a particular way, but a big thing for outdoor events is more smaller speakers. People tend to like to put two big speakers at the front of the space and turn it up loud. It blasts the people at the front and doesn't provide anything for the people at the back. And using smaller speakers and more of them set around makes it so that people outdoors will get a good experience, whereas the people that are picking it up from microphones already will do better. And so you get to have more of a differential if you don't do that outside.
John.
Yeah, I'd also say that's definitely true. Don't blast it out. Have more speakers, and make sure the delays on the speakers are the right thing, so you don't get an echo. But that's a bit more complicated. But also, outside sound can be a lot more forgiving because you haven't got the reverberation or the echoes in a room, or an acoustic in a room. Sometimes on a still day, on a windy day, it's a different matter because sound can really, the wind plays tricks with the sound, but you can be a lot more forgiving actually outside with sound. I generally find. And
I'm guessing for the sound people on here that this is purely a guess from my side, is that you'd be better off with dynamic microphones rather than indoor microphones because you get something that somebody can shout at rather than a condenser outside.
Well, it depends. I mean, sometimes dynamics are great for not sort of feeding back from monitors and picking not dynamics will generally pick up what's immediately around them, whereas condensers and shotgun mics and directional mics can pick up a lot. So yeah, they can be very useful, dynamics, for things like that, and not picking up so much wind, crucially, when it's windy.
Richard,
I was just going to say, as a non-sound person, the most important thing I think you can do if you're going to do this and you've not done it before is do a dry run of it. Try and do it the day before if you can. Set all your kit up and set it all up and just actually try and, as best you can, mimic what you're going to go on, because actually that way, if you haven't done it before, it will just ensure you avoid any problems on the day. Because actually, there's nothing worse than we've all had that thing of you sitting there with a load of people sitting there and the whole thing's going a bit pear-shaped, and you're not in your usual environment. Try and stimulate it in some way before you attempt it.
I know I've said this. I know I've said it before, but I say this all the time. But what's crucial if you're on, if you're outside or on a location or whatever, and you're, have a buddy who's listening to Zoom on a pair of headphones, or indoors, nowhere near your environment, to tell you, to WhatsApp you or whatever, and to say that's a bit loud, that's a bit quiet, because it's really hard to tell what's going into Zoom when you're actually outside on location. So always have a friend that can help you.
Marty.
So we're talking about different kinds of microphones, and I'm thinking about kinds of services or kinds of events other than just regular services. I'm thinking about weddings, bar mitzvahs and stuff, where you've got a scene and you've got a setting and you've got people facing each other, but you don't want to have like a microphone stand in the middle of there. So I've got a couple of clips here that I recorded this afternoon. And so what I've got here is somebody who is standing about 4 feet away from the microphones. And I've got 2 different microphones here. I'm going to try and stop this for a moment. And come back to this because I want to show you what I've got. So I've got an Audio-Technica condenser microphone, and then I've got a shotgun microphone as well. Now, this kind of microphone, this is something that we typically use for vocals, for singers, and it's meant to be used fairly closely. And this kind of microphone is something that you'll find that people who do television production and film production will use, because they can't get close to their subject, to the people who's speaking. And so it would be several feet away. And I'm going to play this because I want you to hear the difference between these two. And I have 2 clips. I have one with them without the dead cats or the furry windscreens, and another one with them, and you'll be able to hear that difference as well. So let me go ahead and share this screen. I need this one first. So this is the the regular microphone, and this is the shotgun microphone.
I'm not hearing either, actually. Is it just me?
You saying you're not hearing that?
I can't hear it either.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on a second. Okay. Seems to be playing. Hang on a second.
Do you want to try a regular screen share?
Oh no.
No.
Could hear it earlier.
Okay.
Why don't you try just a share computer audio trip?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just looking for the right
on the advanced button, I think.
screen. There we go. And let me try this one.
I'm still not hearing anything. Is it may be just me?
No, I'm not getting either. Why don't you try
No.
doing share audio on the advanced, or just do a pure audio share?
While you're trying it, Marty, I just want to ask. Well, you break in when we hear it. We'll stop. But John, Can you remind people or tell people the story of the first funeral online that we witnessed about 18 months ago?
Yeah, it was. So it was done on an iPhone from a very windy funeral burial ground, and you basically, because Zoom had noise cancelling on, every time a gust of wind hit the microphone, you couldn't hear anything, and it was just it was appalling. It was really it was upsetting actually. It's a friend of mine's mother, and it was really upsetting that we couldn't hear anything, and it was shocking. So sound is obviously, as they say, you can get away with a bad picture and good sound, but you can't get away with bad sound and a good picture. And it wasn't either, unfortunately.
I think funerals in particular present a lot of difficulties, of which there is a question that I saw in here. I'm going to find it. Yeah, there you go, from Carmi. Have any of the cemeteries which you have worked on put in reliable internet? My experience so far has been no. The upside is that most of them that I've come across have actually had relatively good 4G and 5G signals, purely on the basis that they are quite open spaces, and there's normally nobody complaining about a mask being put up nearby. David, have you had to deal with have you done any or many funerals during this time?
Not really. I haven't. I've been blessed. I mostly work with kids, so I'm lucky in that respect.
Richard, have you had what's your experience has been with that side of dealing with funerals?
So what's happened with us with funerals is the people who actually undertake the funerals for us have been providing streaming off the grounds for us. So we haven't had to go and deal with that element so much. What's been notable is most families we've noticed have wanted to go and keep that bit private. What we have found at Charlotte Tzedek we have done a lot more of is shiva prayers, online shivas, which is also really nice because of the international aspect of those. And actually it's something I think which won't go back in the box. I think people will probably want to continue doing those online afterwards. And one of the first things, it was interesting to think at the start of the process, I went to a couple of online shivas and saw exactly how not to do it with 20,000 people talking over each other, nobody muting them. Great Aunt Mildred was busy getting changed or having a shower or something in the background, and someone else was making rude comments, and nobody hosted anything. I'm sure you'll remember all those sort of events back in the early days. I could see smiles around. And from that, we actually at Charlotte Tzedek worked out how not to do an online shiva, and we actually have a shiva pack where we have a set of slides, we have a service plan, and we even have a script. So every shiva is identical for us, and it's just ready to go.
This is a really interesting question about that. Do you send for people who do the shiva at home, do you send them equipment, or do you just send them? Do you suggest the setup of their PC at home?
It depends. We have a chat. We try if we can to do a tech rehearsal with them before. I'm trying to work out whether all the families coming together, depending on the rules in force at the time, whether or not they could all be in the same home. Sometimes they took a more flexible interpretation of the rules, and you just had to pretend the rules weren't there when there was rules that only should be 5 people in the house, and you'd see 30 crowded around the screen. There we go. We have got kit which we send out regularly. We have a good webcam, we have a good mic, which we send out to families when we need to, and bits and pieces have got added to it, like extra long Cat5 leads and other things have gone in the box as well. So we have that kit available if it needs to go. Though saying that, we've nicked some of that kit for when we've gone and bought ourselves on site, and we use it for some of our on site stuff. But it's ready to roll whenever we need it.
So you've got that for there. I mean, has anybody else created a similar sort of kit or stuff that they send for remote people? Not necessarily about funerals or shivers, but at other times. Carmi.
So 2 of the synagogues, one here in LA and one in Chicago, have both. They basically took the kit that they already had for shiva houses, which already included the sidurim and talasim and all of those things. They took that kit and expanded it to include a little bit of AV gear. And at least one of the cemeteries here in LA now has put in reliable internet. So they have Wi-Fi that's local, and they offer tech. They have like a camera person and stuff that they'll provide if the synagogue doesn't have it on their own. So they will actually do that. I don't know how many others have done it, but I know that's something that's happened here. And I think it makes a big difference because it's one of these things. I agree. It's not changing in the future. I mean, even because you have internationals and you have non-local people, I think it's going to be something that's going to stay. But again, I think it's more common here to have people do graveside services than it is in other places.
So the bit I've seen, I mean, we did this a number of times at the synagogue I'm at. We provided a kit for bar mitzvahs and assisted, because in a similar way, it's like, this is the one chance we want this to work. Fortunately, now the bar mitzvahs are back in the synagogue, but while they weren't, we were actually providing a camera, we started with a boundary mic. A boundary mic is like a flat microphone that sort of sits on the desk. So we put it sort of close enough up so that they could shout at it. A camera was just a simple Logitech camera with a very small, this sort of high tripod so that it could at least be adjusted. And then we said to them, plug those two things on USB into your computer, along with an Ethernet cable from the computer to their router. And that seemed to solve most of the problems. And we had a number of bar mitzvahs that way. It wasn't the best, but you could hear somebody. And I think that was the whole thing. We wanted to be able to see somebody and hear them. And, it came in a package. Marty, were you going to add on to that?
Yeah, so sending out kits is a great idea because at least you know what you're going to get and you know what it's going to sound like. It's important to include either a microphone preamp or a little mixer in there, which is important, and cameras. So you're sending out this kit and people are using what you're sending them, so you know you're going to get reliable results. And somebody's not going to show up with a Bluetooth headset with a dangling microphone and, things are going to make noise.
This is we've sent out a few times. It's a USB lapel mic, which is pretty good actually. You plug it in just to the computer, you get people to clip it there, and you get really good audio from it. And it's very clean and very simple. You just select it on Zoom or whatever, and it's really good. On Amazon, it's like $20 or something.
One of the things essential we found with any of this kit is we made sure in the box we have absolute idiot-proof instructions right round to this is what the USB socket looks like. Do not make any assumptions at all that the people receiving it know what they're going to do with that kit. Especially if you've got a microphone which has got switches on it, and even though you've sent it out with the right switches, you need to be explicit about diagrams saying this is how you want it set, and you definitely have to do a tech rehearsal with them beforehand to make sure they've actually got all the kit, the camera pointing the right way. I kid you not, we did have someone point the camera at the wall and couldn't work out why we weren't getting a picture. It sounds so silly, but it happens.
The things I've seen over the last 18 months, events where we've been live streaming people and they turned on their iPad and then flipped their iPad because they didn't want to see something, so they flipped their iPad to show the other camera out. So we ended up looking at their feet for a session, and many other interesting times.
There's definitely a book I think to be written about how not to do Zoomcasting.
What happened to Zoom. Marty, have you got your sound working, or shall we move on? And are you there?
I believe so. So let's try this.
Okay.
We're going to try this.
We're going to stand with a thumbs up or thumbs down if we can hear you.
Yeah, all right. Okay, I'm going to play this one. So let me point out that, let me stop the screen share so you can see me. So the handheld microphone, I have this in my mixer. It's going into a digital mixer, and I have the preamp gain maxed out at 58 dB, and which I can't get it any louder, and it was just barely loud enough at this distance that you'll see. On the other hand, the shotgun microphone is the preamp gain is 14 dB lower. It's a lot lower, and it sounds louder. So you'll hear that. And I just wanted to point that out. Let me go and share the screen. So starting out with the handheld microphone. This is the shotgun microphone.
Marty, you need to switch your screen share. We're seeing your main desktop.
We're seeing you now. We're seeing you, and we didn't hear it. We didn't hear it again.
It says I'm sharing the screen.
You are.
No, you're sharing us.
You're sharing the desktop.
Man, this is technology, isn't it? Try this again.
Yeah.
How's that? There we go.
We can see now. Let's see if we can hear. Can't hear a thing.
So this is the handheld mic.
There's no sound at all, though. It does say there's sound that you are sharing sound, though.
And this is the shotgun microphone.
No.
No.
No. No.
No.
No.
No.
We can see you're sharing sound, but there's no sound coming.
I believe it. We can't hear it here, and I'm getting people
right.
from Ireland telling me they can't hear it. They're closer to you than I am, and they can't hear it, so it's still not loud enough.
The point is that a handheld microphone like this is not really good at a distance. It's going to pick up a lot of the environment, right?
Yeah.
A shotgun microphone like this has a much narrower pickup pattern. It can hear sounds farther that are louder and reduce the ambient sounds. And
Are you able to plug the shotgun into your mixer there or not? Or is that too
Yes.
difficult?
Yes, give me just a moment. I'll get that up.
Let's carry on, and that may be, so then we can do a real world test with you, because you've got a microphone there, so we can see the difference. Okay, right, moving on. The question that I've got up that I was what tools do you use to keep? This is from Dave Reimer. What tools do you use to keep in contact with remote contributors during an event? John Fiber.
So the simplest one is probably WhatsApp or texting, but WhatsApp is good because you can easily create a group and you can say to people, and you can get WhatsApp desktop. If you haven't looked at just Google WhatsApp desktop, because it's really, really useful. You can download it to your PC or Mac, or as well as your phone, and you can type very quickly to people. We use something a little bit more complicated, but again free, totally free, called Discord, which is what my son uses, and probably if any of you got teenage children, they use it to communicate while they're gaming. And it's it's quite complicated. It takes a little while to get your head around it, but get your kids to help you with it. And basically you can set up different channels. You can set up a voice channel, or you can set up a text channel, and you can set up different ones for different jobs. So typically if we had a client, we would set up that client's a channel for voice and for text. You can also do video, just like Zoom. You can send files, and therefore backstage we can talk to each other backstage. So when we're producing a live event, or maybe an online event, we will be talking to each other, saying, okay, put them on screen, take them off, do this. And it's the single most useful thing, I would say, doing both live broadcasts and all online events is the ability to quickly communicate with other people who are running the show. I don't know how we would manage without it now, to be honest with you.
David.
Yeah, this question comes up quite a bit, actually. And I would say that it really depends on the platform. So for example, here in Zoom, right, when I need to communicate with Leo, I pop him a chat. I know vMix, I believe, has into the interview functionality where you can bring, there's a chat feature, I think, built into that, right? In Ecamm Live,
on vMix Call
yeah,
there is.
right. In Ecamm Live, there's no chat, but you can speak to your interview guests when there's a video playing. So there are different ways to do it. Speaking is definitely the quicker of the right. It's easier than chat, I think. My fear with speaking to someone, maybe having a Discord running, is always that I won't be muted on the production and that I'll be announcing my directions to the whole world.
Yeah, I've done that. I can absolutely firmly say I have I have actually announced my production on there, and it does happen. Yuval has joined us. Yuval, you're fairly recently, you started using Discord.
Yeah, but we were looking for solutions and went around using all sorts of communication methods, and we even used WhatsApp. But what I found about WhatsApp, the problem with WhatsApp is that the people at the desk, if they have WhatsApp on their phone, they can't use the web WhatsApp, and therefore I can't really communicate with them very effectively. So we moved to Discord very much with your help, Leo. And we found that, first of all, it's not only 16-year-olds that can use Discord, but 50 and 60-year-olds are, once they get the hang of it, use it very successfully. But it means that we have on our desk, there is the SPS service desk. And on my desk, I have the rabbi's, communication. And actually, it works fantastically well. I would say the only one issue with it, and it's not always going to be an issue, we don't use sound, we only use text. So sometimes it takes away from my own sort of concentration on the things that I really need to do, but it's definitely worth it.
So just touching on this bit, I'm just really on the audio comms here. John, we've got an event tomorrow. Do you want to explain, or it's actually on Wednesday, how we're using Discord on that event?
Yeah, so we're doing an online quiz for lots of schools on Wednesday. So we've set up a little studio with 3 cameras and a vision, switcher and a digital desk in a room with 2 people presenting the event. And then we have the sort of producers of the whole event in the next room. So we'll all be on Discord. So what I found really useful with Discord as well is you can put it on your phone, and you can also, like the little USB headsets that you can buy, you can get an adapter. I've got an iPhone, you get a lightning adapter for that. Actually, it's not, that's a mini jack, a little mini jack. You plug it into the lightning adapter, you plug it into your phone, and then when I'm on a camera, this is getting into a lot of detail, but I use a phone holder that you made for putting on your bike, on your push bike, and I attach that to the tripod leg, and then I've got a comms with a microphone there, and in a quiet environment I can talk to people. It's push to talk or latching on your phone, so you do have to. Now the nightmare is if your phone goes off, if you don't turn the screen to keep it on all the time, because if it goes off, then you have to start trying to look into it and unlock it, which is a nightmare. But when it's on, it's really brilliant, as long as you've got Wi-Fi or 4G, and it's free effectively, which is great.
So I'll just finish up on this really quickly before we move on. 2 other things really quickly. I use these, which are aftershocks. So they're bone connected. They sit above, so they sit on either side, so they don't block my ears, which means I can actually listen and do something else, and the comms are coming through these. And that's an amazing difference, because it just means I can carry on doing anything. And when I'm not hit, there's nothing on the comms, I'm not impeded. But I would also add, we do this a lot with some organizations. We do all their management of all their Zoom calls using Discord. And there's quite a few of them said that they actually think the better chat is happening in the Discord than is actually happening in the Zoom call. So that was the comment. Carmi, last 10 seconds on this before I move on.
Yeah, super quick. It's just one thing to be careful about if you use the chat, the Zoom chat to do comms, is that it is very likely, or it's a big possibility, that people will mistakenly send comm stuff to everybody, and that's the biggest advantage of using some platform other than the chat for that stuff.
But sometimes also adding to that, even if you do send to an individual, the person running the meeting can often see all the chat.
I'd say the one that's the most worrying for me on that is actually Zoom. I find Zoom chat, even to twice today in the meeting that I was running earlier today, someone sent me a message thinking they sent it to someone else, but because I'm the host, they've ended up sending it, or you think you're sending a message to somebody and it also goes to all the other panelists. So I stay away if I can.
Yeah, also because it's just one column, it just flies by sometimes.
I want to move on to an interrelated subject on this before we go on to somewhere else, which is about communication in the written form with people when you're organizing events. And I just really want to go around quickly around the room. What do people use to keep everybody on the same sheet? Anybody got any hands up? Yeah, John.
Yeah, we use Google Sheets, which we share. And most people now, it is the best way, especially if you've got content like video. And I've just had a customer who didn't really want to use Google Sheets, and I spent half the job literally trailing through email trails, trying to find where he'd sent stuff. But whereas if we have Google Sheets, we have a schedule, we have the whole schedule on one sheet. On the next sheet, we'll have links to all the assets, all the video, which will be on Google Drive, and it will change your life if you haven't used it. I mean, obviously other sort of sharing spreadsheets are available, but Google Sheets works with us.
Richard, I'll move on to you.
So we use because we're all internal in the same organization, we use Microsoft environments. So we use a combination of, we use SharePoint. So we have a SharePoint and we have a folder for each event we're doing, has its own designated folder with all the assets sitting in. And we also have a shared spreadsheet which sits on the SharePoint, which also means that we're like on Google Sheets, where it can be updated in live time so everyone can do it. Saying that, even though it gets updated in live time, personally, I still like to go and print the piece of paper out and have it on my desk and sit there with my trusty pencil and tick the thing off. Old habits die hard with a ruler, because you can't beat it.
I know where you're coming from in the thing, but the number of times I've gone, I'm on the wrong sheet. I'm looking, this printout they gave me is the wrong printout. I think the Google Sheets, to me, one of the things that I really like about using the Google Sheets is when we're on a run, when we put everything into one sheet and we put different tabs with different information so that it actually becomes a playbook. And then when we're on the live sheet of the live run order, we actually will change the color to say that's in green or in red, just to say we've passed that point. So we're actually on the same thing when we're moving down the sheet. That's it. Marty.
Yeah, so I'm going to be one of the Zoom hosts for a conference next week that is going to have thousands of participants, and it's got people who are working the event. There are Zoom hosts, chat hosts, workshop hosts, live event hosts, and there's all kinds of paperwork, and there are video files and audio files that are being passed back and forth, and all the files are being handled on Google, either Google Drive, Google Sheets for documentation. There's some spreadsheets, but there's also Slack, which is very similar to Discord for communications. And because there are so many documents and so many files, when something is updated, it's mentioned and it's told to us on Slack, so that we look at Slack for communications and we know when something is updated on the Google Drives.
I just wanted to say one thing, and this is when you're doing really complicated stuff, and this goes right back to my beginnings in theatre and stuff. When we're running a show, a theatre show, or even a conference, if we were doing that, quite often you have someone calling the show. That is someone on a Discord or somewhere where you can talk and saying what's going, because I know, what we find, if you've got a not ridiculously complicated, but you've got stuff going on, and you're say you're switching the camera angles or you're doing the soundboard, it's really hard to read a sheet with what's going on and do what you're doing, i.e. moving stuff around. So sometimes if you can, to have someone say, okay, now we're going to this, stand by for this. If you can have someone that can talk you through it, it really makes a massive difference, because everyone is hearing it at the same time, and you don't have to be looking, where are we in the sheet, which, I know you find that quite hard, Leo, sometimes, as I do.
I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting when David was saying he was texting me on chat, which for once I was able to read the chat. When I'm on the show and I'm doing it, I am so focused, and particularly on when we're doing a live event, I rely on somebody else. If I'm doing the camera switching or I'm doing this, I just rely on somebody, because also it's so hard to keep the flow. I mean, as you're seeing it with what Richard's doing at the moment, he's cutting this show. He's having to do bang, bang. I'm in the thing. Then we'll go to questions. He's got to bring that up. He's got to do other things at the same time. And you're always, there's bits that you're missing. The thing I would always say about it is that it's always you miss things. You miss them. Somebody else probably knows you missed them, but 99% of the people watching never knew you missed it and never even knew that it was supposed to be there and are not bothered. So I've had that on so many things where we've missed something off the list, but the show goes on and it just delivers. Are we there? I'm going to go to Richard, and then Marty, we're going to go for attempt number 3. But Richard.
I was going to say, one thing which we did learn in very, very early days is, and which is why Leo's got me cutting things, is never attempt to host and present the thing online and run the show as well and try and do the cutting, because you rapidly end up in pieces. I remember we often do a talk round after our service with everybody there, and sometimes people are trying to message me on WhatsApp or something to say so and so wants to come in. I don't see it because I'm busy looking at the camera, looking at the screen, and doing it. You can't. There's a limit to what you can multitask, and if you're looking down the barrel of the lens, you definitely can't go and look at the schedule and a messaging app.
I'm going to be interested, Richard, afterwards to find out what Stephen, how he's scoring your cutting for this today, to see what he thinks you did, how well you did.
He's much better than I am.
It's right. I think you also get Sue is probably also going to comment afterwards. So there you go. Okay, moving on to Marty. Marty, are we ready to try again?
Well, I'm not gonna show those clips, but I'm gonna do a couple other things. So I have my regular microphone right here. I've moved it. It's normally down here, just under the screen, but I moved it a little farther.
So I'm going to bring the meters in that will help with this.
Yeah, all right. And I turned off all the processing. So I normally have a low cut filter, a little bit of EQ, a noise gate, and a compressor to make it sound full and present. So I'm a little bit farther away, and there's no processing on it. So you can hear what this microphone sounds like. Now I have this shotgun microphone. This is a shorter one than I was using before, but I also have it on this boom pole. Now, boom pole is a really nice way to, let's say if you're walking around on an outdoor space, if you're doing reception and you want to do interviews with people, so you've got a portable camera, and maybe the camera has a microphone on it, but in an outdoor setting, and depending on the environment, maybe there's a lot of people talking around, you want to get a microphone closer. But how do you do that, practically? So this is something that somebody else can hold, and it's extendable. And, a boom pole like this can go out to 12 feet, which means you can stand 12 feet away and get the microphone really close to the person you're speaking with. So I'm going to switch from my regular microphone.
We can't hear you. I can't hear Marty. Can anybody else hear Marty?
I can't hear Marty.
We can't hear you again.
Sorry about that. How's that?
Yes, now we can hear you.
So I'm going to go back to
Whoa.
my regular microphone here. This is the regular mic, and now I'm going to switch over to the shotgun microphone. And do you hear a difference? Yeah, okay, great. I sound a lot closer, right? So now I'm going to move it about 4 feet away from me, and I'm talking in the direction of the microphone, and it's probably still acceptable, right? And so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to extend it and lock it down. And now it's about 5.5 feet away from me, and I'm not talking any louder, but it's still acceptable. So you can get this, and it, because it rejects sound from the environment, if you were to be outside, it wouldn't hear the chatter of other people talking, in dinner mode. So, the benefit of a shotgun microphone is really nice. And these come in a whole range of prices. They could be, $100, they could be $1,000. But if outdoor environment is something that you're going to do all the time, it's worth having something available. And
Thank you. That was brilliant.
so I was
So
on a,
we got there. We got there.
yeah, no. Can I show you something else?
Far away.
Do we have time?
We do.
I was watching a service online today. Let me bring this over here. I was watching another service from a church online today, and they were doing an outdoor service, and they were doing it with phones for video. And let me just find this. I'll just get this up.
Marty, while you're looking, I'm
Yes.
wondering about, I think, most synagogues, what they're doing is they're taking microphones that they have indoors, a
Right.
Shure SM58 or something like that, and they're moving them outdoors. And the natural instinct is to shove it up, to make sure that that mic is as close to the speaker's mouth as possible. Is there other than not having the microphone right there, is there a benefit to using a shotgun over a regular mic if that mic is properly placed?
Well, again,
I mean-
the difference is going to be that the shotgun microphone is always going to sound more present at a distance than a handheld microphone will, because a handheld microphone has a much broader pickup pattern.
I guess what I'm asking is if that handheld is properly placed, right? If
Oh,
it's
yeah,
right in
if
front of the
it's
speaker.
properly placed, it'll work fine, yeah. But now we were talking about the difference between a dynamic microphone and a condenser microphone. So a dynamic microphone is not going to have as much output level as a condenser microphone will. So if you have a good mixer that's got a lot of preamp gain, and that's one of the big differences between less expensive mixers and more expensive mixers, is how much preamp gain and how clean that gain will be without noise. And that can help.
John, and then Kami. You're on mute,
Kami
John.
go first. Yeah, Kami go first.
Kami.
Just a quick thing. There's one other benefit of shotgun mic in an outdoor situation, which is especially if you have a blimp or a dead cat or windscreen, they are much better at noise rejection from like wind noise and stuff than most sort of indoor mics.
Yeah, I was going to say, and also if you've got a road, if there's any sort of external noise around like a road or other noises going on, it's very directional. There's a great guy on YouTube, what's his name? Curtis Judd. Anyone heard of him? A really, really great guy who specifically does sound, sort of sound for cameras and stuff. But he's really, really good, and he goes through all sort of shotgun microphones and recorders and things.
So we've fixated a little bit on audio. We always end up doing, because audio is always the harder of the two things. On the video side, that one of the things I would say, which I found to be incredibly effective, is the DJI Osmo 3, which is a handheld gimbal which you plug your phone into. It's about £100, and you effectively lock your phone in, and it will hold your phone steady. For funerals in particular, it's just been amazing, because you're standing outside, invariably you're standing, which means that you get quite tired holding something, so you've got to move to prop your arm against something. Don't realize, do realize it's an hour normally, and you can get really tired, and you can pass it to somebody else who can hold it, and it will just. And what you can actually do is you just swipe over the face of the rabbi, and it'll put a square, and it will lock onto them. So even if you walk around, it will stay locked on that one person for quite a while, without you having to do anything. And as I say, it's literally about £100. On that point, I'm just going to move over to Yuval and just mention, you were going to mention about where you are on your funerals.
Yeah, so funerals, actually, things have changed a little bit. And as there is less need of a lockdown, more and more funerals prefer to have the private occasion rather than send it on Zoom, but still is a demand for it. And my system, very simple. I use my phone and I use a tripod, and I just put the tripod in one place where we can see the action. And then often what I do is I use the sort of Jabra headset, which only blocks one of your ears, and it's designed for trucks, so it actually blocks off all the noise around me. It's very good for sound quality. And then when I need others to speak, it's normally if somebody else needs to speak, then what I ask them is to log into Zoom, but with the sound and audio switched off. And then when it is their turn to speak, they just switch on their audio and they speak from their phone. I can still direct my phone as a camera towards them. That seems to be working. And then when we need to walk to the grave, I just take my tripod with me and we walk to the grave.
Okay, I'm going to move on. We've got a number of other questions in here, so I'm going to move on to those. Next question that came in from David Paskin. Best tool for reliable internet without Ethernet for on-location events? So I'll start off with this. I use a 4G box. Go on, David, you're going to put a...
I just want to say I have another question in there which we can ignore, which is connected, which is, do you have any experience with the live view, the getliveview.tv kind of thing?
So I don't have with the Get Live View TV, but what I've done, this is we've put this in a number of places, and I bought these. They're fairly reasonable, the 4G routers. You get a 4G router that you can plug in. It takes the SIM card, just pops in and out there. The nice thing is, if literally all of these, including the ones that you get from the from your mobile provider, you'll see that the fourth port normally says WAN on it. By default, this isn't configured. You need to just go around and work out how to configure it. But what it will do is you can plug in an Ethernet connection into the local network, and it will use that. And if the local area network is unplugged, it will continue going and using it. So you can get the best of both worlds. And so if you've got, once you have one of those set up, you literally can know that you can walk to any place, plug it in, because everything on your side will be the same IP addresses that you're used to. And you can use it at any venue. Even if they just give you one IP address, you can get everything out. And these retail around about £140. So some the top price ones, or not these are the TP-Link ones that I use, and they work well. Anybody else use something similar? Okay, great. Moving on. Another question from Yuval. How can I display Zoom selectively in the sanctuary? I want to show on screen others who join us, but not the sanctuary itself on Zoom. David.
I've been suggesting dual monitors. Zoom has built into it a dual monitor function. And so if you have two monitors plugged into your computer, or your main monitor, which is built into the computer, and then a secondary monitor, you keep the main gallery view, if that's what you're looking at, or speaker view on your main monitor. You drag that second monitor window onto your your TV or whatever you're showing. And then you can either leave that as the active speaker view. So, when you're making noise, you'll show up there, or you can pin certain people. So for example, if you have a Torah Techi, someone who's kind of facilitating your Zoom meeting, and you have someone coming in for an Aliyah, you can pin that video. There's an option in Zoom to pin to second monitor, and then that will show up there.
Anybody else on that? So I know this was there, and I now can't find it because I was asked this a week ago and I can't find it. There's a way to hide self view in there, and I just cannot for the life of me find it. And I know there is a setting to say hide self view. And if you hide self view on the gallery,
click on yourself.
Leo, if you click on the three dots over your image,
of course it would be two. It's if you hide self view on your own view and you put the gallery up, you disappear off the list so that you don't appear in the room. So whichever room it is, that you don't get that parallax or whatever the right term is of it repeating in itself. But it's
the other thing to do when you do that is always to hide non-video participants. Otherwise, you end up
as well. Yeah, and then you just end up with a clean room.
Lots of names at the bottom.
Yeah, Yuval.
So my only question is, if I have no experience of it, but it would be interesting to know if you wanted to spotlight yourself and hide self-view at the same time, whether this is going to work or not. Because that's what I want to do. I want people in the sanctuary not to be distracted by another view of the sanctuary while they're already there. They don't need to see it.
It's a bit of a, well, you wouldn't. Yeah, you would. I wouldn't know if.
So
David.
What I would suggest, Yuval, is that you join from another device. Maybe it's a portal or something like that. You turn the video off and you make your icon, your profile picture, the logo of the synagogue. And so you pin that participant to that second screen until you want to bring in a remote participant into your experience. That way people are just seeing, or maybe it's a slide of upcoming events or whatever, or a beautiful piece of artwork. You have that there, and then when someone's participating, then you pin them to that screen.
Okay, moving on to the next question I have here. We've already answered this one, really, haven't we? Which is, David, you asked about has an experience of the live view. I do know about that. There's a lot of hardware that came out that enables you to do this multi. So the big problem, what you're doing is bonding connections. And if you imagine the way that this works is you're sending out two connections out to the internet. They can't just go out to the internet. They have to join somewhere to be put back in. So most of these hardware services include a license for them to be able to, for you to hit the gateway at their end so that they can bring the two pictures back together. Otherwise the frames are all going to be all over the place. And so that's why you will find with all of those devices, there will be a subscription service, pretty much all of them. Otherwise it's never going to work. You can always bond two Ethernet connections, two connections to the internet. There's lots and lots of ways of doing that, but it was always designed so that some traffic goes over one, some goes over another. But when you're doing video, if you get the packets, if you imagine you're getting the frames out of order, they're just a complete waste of time. So there needs to be something to bring it back together again. So that's how those ones work. This is a really interesting and completely different subject from Beverly Sperry. I'm interested in finding out if your congregation had made any changes to its membership structure to bring in new online-only participants. How is your membership changing? Richard?
Short answer is we haven't done any membership changes, but we have been talking about one of the active discussion points I've been encouraging people to think about is digital only. We can't call them members, they're not only, but people, digital only participants, and being aware that we have participants who are geographically a long way away from our community and making sure we actively make them as welcome as possible. I don't know whether we're at the stage yet of trying to monetize that. It hasn't felt quite appropriate, but maybe that is something we might start looking at in the next 6 months' time. What I have noticed is a few of them who've come to regular events have turned around and said, "Can we make some donations?" And we very much encouraged that, but we haven't actually moved them into membership as yet.
David, where are you seeing this in America? I know you're not in a pulpit at the moment, but how have you seen this in people?
I don't know how I'm seeing. I know everyone's asking the question, and I don't know what the answer is, but here's what I hope happens. What I hope happens is that this forces us to double down on the question of how synagogues and temples support themselves, because membership is meaningless in a world in which I can daven anywhere. And if what I'm looking for, right, is a community to pray with or to learn with, if I can access that anywhere by paying a fee or by making a donation, then the idea of membership becomes meaningless. And unfortunately, many of our synagogues and temples, that's sort of the model. It's not about, although we want it to be, it's not about tight-knit communities and we're all in this together. It really is fee for service for many of us. And so we have to start thinking differently, or at least asking the question about how do we monetize, how do we sustain ourselves in this new kind of an environment where what we're offering, frankly, is not really unique.
I would only say, I mean, I totally get what you're saying. I would only say, we have almost exclusively a subscription sort of model in the UK, and but that does cover burial rights. It also, I'm a member of our bereavement group in our synagogue, so we used to visit, and now we call people. There's a care team that still go and do all these things, and that's the sort of, for me, is the added value of being a localized member. In terms of worship, you're totally right. I mean, you're
right. And what we're seeing in America is, and this happened long before COVID, is the rise of the independent rabbi, the independent cantor, the independent whatever, who, so there are bar bat mitzvah rabbis and cantors who no one has to join a synagogue to do that anymore. And I'm not advocating that, by the way. There's tremendous value to joining a synagogue. But the reality is that you can hire a rabbi to do a funeral, you can hire a rabbi to do your wedding, you're this, you're that, and you don't have to pay dues. So either we figure out what it is we're selling, how we can best sell it and monetize that in a world in which everything is accessible to anyone, anywhere, or we figure out what it means to be a community, and we do what you're talking about, Jonathan. We build that sense of, boy, I'm really getting value from this sense of community that I have, not just from the service provided by the professionals.
Richard and then Kami.
I wanted to very much follow on from that. One of the key things which is different between the States and over here in the UK is we're unique in that we go and tie what happens to you when you die to synagogue membership. We actually tack that on there, and it's a very strange thing. There's been lots of work done here by the Reform movement looking at this, and it's a really strange phenomenon that the main reason people stay members of the synagogue in the UK for 50 years is because they paid into a burial fund and it cost them too much to move to another community. And basically it's a really, really strange method of doing it. And actually what this is all about is trying to go and develop your programming so you're more relational and you're less transactional. Let's face it, you don't go and join a gym and then the owner comes around in the afternoon and says, would you mind coming and sweeping the floor for me? If you did that at your gym, you tell them where to go. Whereas we're quite up for saying that to our synagogue members, and it's a totally different proposition we're putting forward. So it's about trying to create these feelings of connections and community and belonging, and little things like chat rounds at the end of services where people go and talk to each other and things like that are really, really important, because that's the glue which brings community together. And if you can do that with your online people, you might have a chance then to try and get them to think about becoming a member or a friend in some sort of way.
Yeah.
But I actually think the subscription model is doomed, as was originally, I think prior to that, the model was people used to go and buy seats, which they still do in the traditional United Synagogue in the UK. But that also went, and actually the current fee model, I think, is due for change at some point. I know there's some communities in the States who experiment where they say to people, make up how much you want to pay and see what it's worth it, and you have to go and justify your existence. None of us as our institutions have a right to exist. This is a bit of a hobby horse of mine, but I'm going to shut up now.
I'm going to go to Kami and then Yuval, and I want to try and keep this relating to the digital side of this, because obviously it's it relates in theory. Kami.
So a number of shulls here in the U.S. have, as I just said, moved to a model of no specific fee, and because of that, you're also starting to see more of more groups that are doing sort of just the educational aspects. There's a Jewett at Home as one of the groups that have worked with a number of other shulls to be able to provide that, and that's something that you can do in the digital world that you couldn't do before. So you can have, you might not have enough people in your shull to have a study every week, but if you get 3 or 4 groups together, you can, right? And so we're starting to see some of that where you get more of a not membership in the sense that it used to be, but membership in the, we'll put you on a list and we'll send you notifications of all these things, and then you just encourage people to contribute because you make it easy. But you're not, since you're not asking for anything directly, you can offer them things that you couldn't have offered before. I can go, and I do this, I go to services in Chicago routinely where my dad is, whereas before I would have had to fly back to Chicago to do that. And that's a big difference that you're getting here.
Yuval and then David.
So we never saw that as an opportunity to change the membership model, but rather as an enabler at the time of the pandemic. What we found is that people wanted to join us, and us being visible, especially on Facebook and mostly Facebook, less so on YouTube, meant that some people joined in, and we welcomed everybody who wanted to join in. Some of them were actually converted into members, which is really nice. I wouldn't say it's a big flood, but it's nice that those who joined us and thought that our services really spoke to them eventually have now a form of a membership. Where the big difference is when it comes to proselytes, because I found that some of the proselytes that joined me during the pandemic are people who would not otherwise have been able to join me. Because maybe they're disabled or they live too far and so on. Now here I have a dilemma, because normally the rabbi proselyte relation is you want to see them, you want to see them come to the synagogue, and here I need to change the model because I know that those people who join want to join Judaism. So we need to think about that very carefully.
David, and then I'd really like to hear.
You muted yourself, Leo.
I muted myself, didn't I? Sorry, I was going to say, David, I'd really like to hear from Marty from a different religion if there's a different view of some of this. But David.
So yeah, first of all, thank you for bringing us back to the digital aspect of it. A couple quick thoughts. First is, if we want to create categories for digital memberships or even invite donations for digital memberships, then we have to do more than simply stream our services. We have to create engagement, real engagement for our online communities. And that goes beyond setting up cameras and just having nice microphones. It means really engaging with people in digital space. Another thing is that I think we need to borrow from the church world is that it can't just happen on Saturdays. Saturdays needs to be 20% of the amount that we're engaging with and offering to our digital communities. The other 80% has to be happening during the week with personal contact, with teachings, with videos, with whatever. And the third thing, final thing, is that we also have to learn how to use metrics in YouTube, in Facebook. We have to learn how to monetize based on those, learn how to add donate here buttons and all that other stuff to all of our streams and all that we're offering in digital space.
Marty.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful, David. In Unitarian Universalism, uh, there is no set um, fee to join the church. It is based pretty much on your income level and your comfort. Actually, it's a voluntary pledge every year that you make. In order to be a member, you have to pledge some amount of money. But every service has, during COVID, every virtual service has a collection plate. There are ways for anybody who's viewing to make a donation to the church. And other than Sundays, there are various workshops and meetings that happen that people are invited to via the weekly newsletter that goes out and posted on the website, such as social justice meetings, environmental conservation meetings, meetings that involve political activism, and uh, personal care meetings, outreach and ingathering, what they call it. It's like the gentlemen's club, the ladies' club. They all get together online and they hold, they get together for an hour or an hour and a half or something, and they do what they do in an in-person meeting. And there are always ways to make contributions during these things. So there's always some money that is coming in. People are contributing to the church pretty much all the time, or as often as they can.
I think this is to me this is very similar to how we've watched the disruption of other models in the past. So we watched the disruption of the the music industry, where we went from the music industry were banking on you buying a record to an LP to CD. It was a cash cow that they were doing all along. Suddenly something came along that completely disrupted them with Napster, and they had to change their model to do it. And in a greater or lesser degree, I believe that the similar thing this is happening. What the level of this environment has shown is that you can tune in, as David said, you can daven with anybody you like in the world. And when you can daven with anybody you like in the world, you can also choose to not daven with anybody you like. So there seems to be a lot more synagogues that are the ones that you never want to visit ever again. And because you can see the ones out there that you like and the people that you like, and you find the communities. I think when everything was geographic, which is how it was in the past, and built by geography, and also, as Richard has said, with certain rights, and the burial rights is still a huge thing. But people at a younger age maybe aren't actually taking that so much of an interest. They're now looking at, what does it mean to me? Who do I gel with this rabbi? Do I get on with this community? Are they the way that I feel? And does it matter if I'm not actually, that there is a lot more things there. It will be hugely interesting to see how this moves on. And maybe this is now going beyond where the tech side is that we could talk about.
We can spend 2 hours talking about this, and
we could have a lot more opinions. I don't know how that would come about, but there we go. Have a lot more opinions. Thank you, Beverly, for a really interesting question. The question is going to interrelate. So I actually got a question that came in, and I apologize, from Cindy, which I missed. She was asking, what is the router? And also Yuval has asked the same question. So I'm using, as Yuval says, the TP link. This is the AV. This actually, I think, isn't the 1200. This is the MR400, but the 1200 is the better one. But they are coming out with 5G ones shortly, and what that means is they're designed for home to business use. You can go up. There's a lot of options that are a lot more expensive than this. Where we found these incredibly useful, we put a couple in a synagogue that has got some mobile trucks. I can't think of the right word. It's a cabinet on wheels with all the equipment in, and they move to different locations within their synagogue to do their services. we put this in so that they knew that if the internet just didn't happen that day, that they can continue the service. So I'm not aware of 5G version of them out yet, but I'm expecting. Does anybody else, have you seen the 5G versions? Not yet.
Not seen that. But
Richard.
one thing we did is we've installed a mesh Wi-Fi network across the whole site. In theory, we've had some teething problems, but in theory, to go and give us consistent Wi-Fi coverage no matter where we sit around. What we hit a problem was we actually ran out of IP addresses because we had people coming in logging into the public side who were nicking away our IP addresses. And we've had to play around a little bit with that, but actually making sure we have consistent Wi-Fi with lots of access points and the whole network running consistently was really important. Until that point, we had about collection of about 5 different Wi-Fi networks, which we tried to build ourselves. What
I recommend on a lot of places is that's great for your community to do that, but have a completely separate network and or some of it Wi-Fi for the production side. If you look at this the same in any theatre environment, there's always been a break between what happens for the audience, the connectivity for the audience, and the production side. You're literally and the same as every football stadium, everywhere you go, you'll see that they have a private network that's purely for the production side, because that's the bit you rely on. And what the number of times that I've done events where we've had so I do the Board of Deputies streaming. We have massive connectivity at the venue when we used to do it, and then we would look around and there would be 15 people watching the stream, sitting in the seats and watching the stream, watching it full broadband. And you're like, whatever you do, they're going to pull your whole connection down. And anybody who's been in a stadium, in a football stadium or a sports arena, will see that go there when I go there and it's silent and you get the biggest internet connection you've ever done. Go there when there's a load of supporters there and it kills it. So keep it separate.
So Leo, I'm seeing, just looking online, and I'm seeing that there are 5G routers available from HTC, Verizon, Netgear, and D-Link.
Yeah, they're all coming out. This is slightly going to one side, but it's been reported on many similar shows about this. We are about to go into a real shortage of equipment, a global shortage of equipment over the next 6 months. It's going to start hitting in the next 3 to 6 months, and it's going to potentially last up to about 5 years. There's lots of reasons for it, but it's basically to do with fabrication factories that have disappeared. 3 of them are burnt down, and they're going to take a long time. A lot of manufacturers are holding off equipment launches because they know they're not going to be able to deliver. So if you are thinking about speccing out and doing your installs, I would recommend that you pull the trigger on doing it sooner rather than later. You may not find you can actually get the equipment at the figure that you budgeted for in 6 months' time, because you just won't be able to get the equipment. It's not on everything, but there are certain things that are going to be there. Marty, have you come across anything on shortages yet?
Yeah, microchips. Anything with a microchip. There are cars sitting on lots, like thousands and thousands of cars sitting on manufacturers' lots because they can't get the microchips that run the computers in the cars. We've seen some audio processing gear, some higher end mixers with problems. There was a shortage of cameras during COVID. That's kind of cleared up for at least for the moment, but I am seeing messages from a number of manufacturers about price increases that they're about to go into effect, if not already. And that's because of price, supply and demand. As demand goes up, supply gets shorter, prices go up as well.
Carmi.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of this, and one of the things that I've also heard from a couple of manufacturers, which are that we've been used to a world in which every year either the price went down for the same features, or the price stayed the same and you got more features. And most of the manufacturers are saying they don't expect to see that again anytime soon. We're going to start seeing actual normal, like other industry price increases year over year. We won't be coming down for a long time.
Yeah. There's actually a question that's come in on this from Liberty White with regards to the forthcoming shortage. What kinds of gear should we be looking at to get sooner rather than later? So, from my experience, it seems to be across the board, but there seem to be certain products from certain people. So, we typically on this, when we're talking about audio hardware, in the mixer environment, you're talking about, there's a couple of manufacturers. One is Behringer, one is Allen and Heath. They've got shortages in some of their ranges, and the shortages are, when you look at it, it's availability 12 weeks, and that's a maybe. And it's that sort of thing that you've got to be very careful about. As Marty said, on the cameras, there was shortages on a couple of the manufacturers. Last year, you couldn't get, a good classic example, you couldn't get a Logitech camera last year for a laptop you could if you wanted to pay 5 times the price.
You couldn't get any USB webcam at all from anybody.
No.
Or even USB microphones. They were all on, seriously on shorthand.
But that's all cleared up now. But as I say, the shortage which is coming is going to be a lot worse, is my understanding.
Some of the manufacturers had the foresight and the financial awareness to stock up on a lot of chips once they became available. And so they have the inventory to produce a certain number of products, but once those run out, is going to be dried up again.
Well, so having spoken to a manufacturer in the audio space just last week, he said they were told, they had orders in for stuff, standing orders, and they were told that their stuff from September, maybe they'll get in 2022, and stuff from the late fall, they might not be getting at all. But the big issue is anything that includes an FPGA. So anything that is not just a completely, the webcams are probably easier, but things like Blackmagic cameras and sound devices, the Behringer gear, all of these things include FPGAs, which are basically special purpose computers that can be programmed to be a particular chip. And there's a huge shortage in that space, and that's going to be a big issue. So anything that's like that, you'll have less issues with stuff from Apple, because they own so much of the production chain that effectively own so much of the production chain that they're not going to have problems. But pretty much anybody but them, and maybe Samsung, you should be worried about.
So I know this sounds all very technical, and it's like, what's this got to do with where we normally are? And I can see normally the barometer of have we gone too technical is David, who will sit there and throw his hands up to say, what are you talking about? Why do we need to know about this? But the reality of why we need to know about it is, if you're sitting there thinking about this is what we're going to be doing, this is what we're planning, and you can't deliver on your plans, now is the time to really decide what you're going to do and execute on it, because it isn't. There's two combined issues. One is the shortage, but the other thing, as I said, is that the manufacturers are unlikely to be releasing new versions of certain things because they know the shortage is coming. So they will actually hold off, because the last thing they want to do is issue a new product with a limited run, which means that somebody else can come in and sell on their product range. So they actually are holding off on the new version. So it's even a second reason to be buying what's on the shelf at the moment. So that's the reason.
I've heard that a number of manufacturers are trying to redesign their circuits to use different chips than the ones that they can't get. Yeah,
I did see. It's the last thing I'll mention about it. I saw a teardown on the. This is the A10 Mini Extreme, And the 2 chips which sit inside this A10 Mini Extreme, if you try and buy the retail of the 2 chips that are inside it, it's over $1,000 just to buy the 2 chips. And this only retails at $1,200. So that's how desperate it's got. The fabrication to fabricate these as a retail is now more expensive than it is to physically buy it. It's that desperate. Okay, last question that we've got from Kami. Have any of your organizations offer support for remote children of older members, especially when we move out of lockdown? Explain your question, Kami, to me.
So, in the old days, it was easy. My dad goes to shul in Chicago. There were people there that sort of saw him, and I would talk to him on weekends, what I would call. But I know that our shul has done a lot now to provide support for some of these people, and especially during the lockdown period, where they would be able to check more regularly, or if they knew that, I could say, I want to make sure that my dad has stuff. Could somebody arrange to bring something by or stuff like that, which is a service that we can provide in the remote space that we couldn't do before, right? Before there was no reason for that, but now because you have the ability to attend a service remotely and sort of making sure that that you people, what's going on, and sort of trying to say, oh, my dad is in Chicago here. I know what synagogue he goes to, but I happen to be involved with it, but it's also a thing of reaching out to those members' children the other direction, right? So not waiting for me to contact them, but to contact the kids and say, hey, you could come to services here.
Richard, I'm going to start with you. You're pondering. How are you dealing with these things at your shul?
So, I mean, the immediate thing I was sort of thinking about, was we had one particular bereavement where we had, and I think it's one of the nice things about this, we talked about this earlier, where we had the daughter of the person who unfortunately passed away. They were long-standing members. They've been members for 60 years. But she lived somewhere out in LA. I did look it up. It looked very nice when she lived on some little island and something like that. But we were able to go but before lockdown, she'd been looking at getting on a plane, flying overnight to get in for the funeral, staying for a week, and and a huge financial outlay. But actually, we were able to do all the support to the family who are living out there, and they were very grateful and felt really held and supported. And I guess is that sort of where you're going, Kami, with this?
Yeah. So what I was thinking, I mean, from my perspective, as I said, I'm connected to the shul because I grew up there, but I know lots of people that the kids aren't connected, and so I know that we started doing that at one of the shuls in Chicago, the one that my dad goes to, of actually actively reaching out to the children of older members and inviting them, specifically saying, your parent comes to synagogue every Saturday or every, whatever. Here's the time of the service. You might want to come, right? You don't have to, or on this week, we're going to have a service where we're going to encourage you to come to, but specifically reaching out from the synagogue side to those people, as opposed to just hoping that the kid finds it or that the parent figures out on their own. So just asking about it and trying to do it that way.
It's a good point. I don't think we do particularly, but what would be a nice thing is to have a special service for older members and their kids online. Make a thing of it. But we don't do that at the moment. Yeah. One
thing we did this year, normally for us for Days of Awe, is a bit of a high holy days, is a bit of a money spinner for us for bringing in people who aren't affiliated anyway. You charge them tickets for basically turning up, and of course we didn't do that last year because we were all online. But and actually, in some ways, we did actually get to pick up that way of people who had been disconnected from the community in a variety of ways coming back in. And I guess it speaks to that thing about digital members we were talking about earlier, and about giving a bit of a shop window at those sorts of times about where we are and connecting to families. Because it's often those key moments in the year when people want to connect back to their home community and they might not be in the area, and that's being online speaks to us being able to do that, I guess.
So we have a number of different youth groups based on age. So different age groups have different groups. And the younger kids, when they reach a certain age, they bridge over to the next group. And once they graduate high school and they go away to college, church can still provide them with a means of connecting with the same group of people, with all their friends that they've grown up in the congregation with. And each one of the groups does do a service every year, whether it's in person or online. And that's a really nice way to keep our younger people connected to the congregation, is by providing them these opportunities to engage with the group that they're in, and with the younger groups to provide them with encouragement as well.
I think there's a lot that we've learned in this time of where we can move our programming, if programming is the right term, to involve people that aren't necessarily in the area. One of the services that I particularly found that resonated with me is that when my synagogue did a joint service with South Africa, having South African relatives and being able to suddenly have the best thing was just to be looking at the screen, and then in Kiddush afterwards, it's like talking to people that, oh, well, I know your grandfather. And it's like, that to me was like, that made my day. And it's like, that's the way that I think we need to look at it. And I think the more that we can utilize this technology to bridge that divide in the time that we can, I think the stronger it will make us to moving it forward.
I think that
now, go on.
Also, I just think, the whole thing we were talking about, how do we monetize online members and stuff. But I know from our shul, that we've had a few people from around the world, but there's one lady who comes every week from Cape Cod, and on the Saturday morning service, she must be getting up at 4 a.m. or something crazy, and she lives on her own in Cape Cod, and we all find it so moving, because she wants to be here, and she makes an effort to get up, and she says, you can see it's dark, pitch black, and it's really, we keep saying to her, we can't wait for this to be over and then come over and see us, because it would be lovely,
Okay.
What I was going to say is actually one thing which is really important. It's a bit of feedback I had from one of the rabbis in our community who lost a relation who lived in Finland, of all places, but it meant it was an opportunity for the family to come together for an online shiva. But the people hosting the shiva prayers decided to do the prayers at high speed and basically cut the thing off and end it. And he said, actually, that was really sad, because it was the opportunity. There was members of the family there who hadn't seen each other maybe for decades in some cases. And often the most important part of the service you're doing, or the event you're doing, is not the prayers itself, but it's the time for the family to spend time catching up, seeing each other, acknowledging, making those connections they might not have had for that period. And that is actually one of the most important things we do, is bringing people together. We do an event on Thursday, a music event we do with the same rabbi, and we pick up people who come to it. He's originally from Texas and Canada. He's been all over the place. So we get people joining us. We're at 3:00 in the afternoon. We've got people coming into us where it's 7 a.m. in Vancouver. We've got Austin in Texas coming on. He's got some nuns in Germany, and we've got another nun who's based in Erbil in Iraq, of all places. It's really random, but we have all these people coming on because they've got a connection to the event and want to be part of this community. And we have this community of 50 people across eight or 10 time zones, and it's wonderful, because you wouldn't have done that pre-COVID. We wouldn't have done that at all.
And on that point of saying don't cut people off, I think we've come to the end of our time. Before we do, I just want to pass over to David just to remind everybody what's happening next week.
Absolutely. And before I do, I just want to give a huge thank you to Leo for making this happen for the past number of months. And I mean, this has been I have learned so much. And I also want to give a special shout out to Marty and Carmi and Yuval and Jonathan and Richard. I mean, everyone who's participated in this, it's just been so rich and so helpful. And I'm so, so grateful. So thank you to all of you. Yeah, so next week, I hope you'll join us. It's going to be the Torah Tech Summit. Go to torahtechsummit.com. You could register there. It's completely free. Amazing learning. Some of it a little technical. Certainly when Marty presents, it'll be technical, but a lot of it also for those us monkeys over here who don't get all that technical mumbo jumbo. But really, it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful day. So I hope you all will join us. TorahTechSummit.com, and it's going to be sort of the finale, the season finale of these sessions, which I hope will resume in the fall.
What time is it, David?
It begins at 10:30 Eastern time. It runs all day until 5 o'clock Eastern time with a number of different sessions. The entire schedule is up on our website. You're welcome to view it there. You can come in for some of it. You can come out for other parts of it. Whatever feels good for you, whatever works for you.
So that's 3:30 UK time. It starts. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Richard, if you can stop the stream, because you're the person that will be able to press the button. So goodbye to everybody on